welcome to 216, a link to the Past Randomizer podcast. I am your host, Fear Agent, back with another fantastic episode. Today on the show, we've got sab0tender. You can't see me, but I'm shaking my head in disbelief of how good this episode is. I love chatting with Sabo. Sabo is just one of the best people in all of Rando, and we had such a good time chatting. I'm very excited for everyone to hear it, so we'll get to it shortly. Couple of things. Someone got banned for cheating. Alex Jass was banned for stream sniping, and it's always unfortunate when people cheat. This is really one of the worst parts about being a Tark admin, is having to deal with cheating investigations. Did not enjoy it when I was a part of the council. Don't enjoy it now. When it's found that someone is cheating, we have to be the bearer of bad news. That always stinks. And, talking to the person that cheated also is never fun. So just never a good time. So please just don't cheat, people. It just sucks. It really does. It was also hard because the investigation was going on last week, right before the episode with Kaysden came out, and Kaysden talked a bit about Alex Jass, as he was the one that beat him in the Challenge Cup finals. And then they also faced off in some other tournaments. It's just frustrating. Just don't cheat. It's not worth it. Just don't cheat, man. It just sucks for everyone. It sucks for the people that have to investigate. It sucks for the people that you cheated against. It sucks for the community. It sucks for the people that actually cheat as well, because you're no longer racing. And it's not worth it. It really is not worth it. All right. On a positive note, the League Season 6 reveal happened. I am back in the league, back with Gamachu again. We've been league teammates since Season 2. We had Ramon with us last season as the Divine Beastie Boys. We're back with Shireen this year. New name. Our team name is Your Mom's Favorite Rando Team. It's silly. We are in the Kakariko division with Amish Paradise, Don't Forget to Track Us, JKLOL, Leftovers Restocked, Fendrana Drifters, Sawhouse Kids, and the Tile Roomies. Fendrana Drifters are scary. They're back. They won Season 3. They replaced Frostbite with Wall Kicks. They're scary. They're really scary. And we have to play them in the pilot spoiler week. So that's going to be really, really scary. Tile Roomies, we play week 1. One of my favorite teams. I'm just really a big fan of all three of these guys. Jamie Scher, Artie Walsh, and Plasma Kappa. And they're kind of a team that flies under the radar. If you've been in the Rando community for a while, you know who they are. They're not big names. They're not big streamers. But they're really good. And they're just good people too. So always rooting for the Tile Roomies, except for week 1 when we got to play them. We've played against Don't Forget to Track Us for a couple seasons now, I think. Again, a team full of really good people. Ikeir, Perdwong, and Flip Heel. That should be fun to play against them. JKLOL, I've had on the podcast, all 3 members. Big fans of them. Amish Paradise with Zero Nix, Danny Music, and Dapper Wormman were in the Open last season and made it to the conference finals. So they earned their invite. So that's super cool. It'll be fun to play against them. Leftovers Restocked is a classic team. Mystic, Chimo, and Days Cloud. Going to be super excited to play them as well. Saha's Kids, Talon, Gilgamesh, and Mike and Kopi. I think that's how you say it. I could be wrong. If I am saying that wrong, I apologize. Also in the conference finals of the Open last season, earned their invitation to season number 6. Should be a lot of fun racing against them. So that's the division. Really excited about the season. Sigma did something super amazing and added a pick'em to the website. That's right. You can pick either open or invitational or both. Every week you can pick one team winning both games or having them split, and then you get points for it all, and it's super fun. I love this sort of thing. I'm a big fantasy football guy. I like betting and all that kind of stuff. So this is such a cool addition, and it's built right into the website. So all you have to do is go to alttprleague.com, click the pick'em link at the top, log in through your Discord account, and then make picks and see how well you do. And looking at it, there's a lot of people already making picks. That's super fun. So check that out if you enjoy that kind of thing. Some notable additions to the league. I talked to GGW twice. I had Telethar on. It sounded like they were done, but it didn't seem like the OK dudes were coming back. They're back. They're no longer the OK dudes, but they are the Salt Miners. They're over in the Lost Woods division with Beats from the East, which has Homemade Beer, Jula Ninja, and Moogle Charm, 3 of my buds. That should be a fun division. That also has Thalane, Super Nintailor, and Recidador, as Terranigma is a great game. That's a fun team that's sort of returning back to the league that I'm excited to see. 2 Infinity and Pagog is also in that division, and that's a team you got to really look out for. Over in the Skull Woods division, the Spoilers with Zalga, Shady, and Dr. Marty is in that division. You got to watch out for them. Scottish Braves, Arcane, and Structural Mike's team, the Last Locationeers, are in that division, and they're always competitive. Of note, Korek, Act the Boker, and Gem are back in the league this year. That's super exciting. They used to be called 4K, Fourth, and Forehead. They are now We All Should Hover Every Day, or Washed, which is good. Great name. Excited to see those guys back in the league. In the Misery Mire division, Sinhei Breve and Top Life won the Open, obviously are invited into Season 6 Invitational. They're known as Cross Keys this year. Gonna watch out for them. The Pugs are back. Aries out, and Matt7898 is in his spot. So that team's still super scary with Dante, Andy, and now Matt. Hime added 2C. That makes Team Hime scarier than ever. So some really cool teams. I'm excited for League. Only 4 teams didn't come back in the Invitational this year from last season. That's amazing. Usually the turnover is around 8, maybe a little bit more sometimes. But losing only 4 teams is pretty incredible. So jacked for the League. Super excited for the League. I've been back playing. I really have to manage how much I play. I've talked a lot on the show about my relationship to competitive racing and competition in general, and it's addicting. Like, getting back into the game is super addicting. I mean, we all do it, right? It's hard not to just jam more races. It's a super delicate balance that I have to navigate. I need to practice because I don't want to be terrible when I'm racing in the league. I don't want to be a dead weight, but I can't play too much. Ladder's not good for me. Too much one-on-one is just not healthy. The problem is the ladder has the 216 mode now, the Hundo Key Sanity, which I love. I love this mode. You have to pick up all 216 items. Trying not to race it as much as I can. Pick up races with multiple people has been the way to go for me. I'm really enjoying those races, but I can't do too much one-on-one. I just have to manage it. And League is the only thing that I'll do. I'm not going to do the main tournament, not going to do cross keys, not going to do any other tournaments, just the League. And mostly because I get to do co-op. That's why I enjoy the League so much. Is I just really love co-op. It's my favorite way to play the game. And we've got co-op in the playoffs, so that's going to be really cool. So hopefully your mom's favorite rando team can make the playoffs. Going to be a tough division over there in Kakariko. Excited about that. All right, so we did the Super Mario Series draft last week. Hope you listened to that episode. Really hoping to get more votes. Didn't get a lot of votes for the Zelda series. Hoping to get more for the Mario series. There's a link in the announcements. You don't have to type anything. You don't have to register. It's just a Google form. Who do you think won? If you've listened to the episode and have forgotten who's picked what, I posted an image of all of the draft picks in the announcements channel. So that's there for you if you need a reminder or a refresher. I hope you're enjoying the drafts. They're super fun. So vote for who you think drafted the best set of Mario games. All right, I've talked long enough. Let's get to the conversation with sab0tender. Such a good dude. Here we go. Here's Sabo. All right, super excited to have you today, sab0tender. When you describe like the best people in all of Rando, there's not very many people that would agree on the same best person except for one, and that is you. You're like one of the best people that everyone agrees in the entire community, and have been here for a long time doing it. So one, I'm super excited to have you here on the show, and two, kind of, even though we've had a lot of interactions, really kind of excited to learn more about your story, man. So thanks for doing this.
Wow, what an intro.
I mean, you deserve it. You totally deserve it.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm glad that I'm finally on the podcast. I'm ready to just, let's chat, man.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, you're Canadian, right? Like, I think that's going to play a little bit into why you're such a good guy, is the Canadian stereotype of
I live up to it, friendly. I think, yeah.
You totally live up to the stereotype of being super friendly. I mean, you're main tournament admin. You've been in the league since season 1. You've raced, and we'll talk about that infamous race against Andy that you took down the big dog and kind of made a name for yourself. Yeah, well, sure, we'll talk about all that stuff. You've been a part of so many different aspects of the game, and like I mentioned, no one has a bad thing to say about you, because even as someone who's like has to do some of the dirty work, being an admin for the main tournament, it's like you can always rely on Sabo, and that no matter what, he's a good guy. So
it is not always easy being an admin. That's for sure. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So where did it start? Back when you were, I take it you grew up in Canada as well. Were you playing video games? Did they have video games in Canada? I'm just kidding.
Oh boy, yeah, we sure did.
What were you playing when you were a kid?
Let's see. I grew up with. I'm an '80s kid, so I'm a little bit older, I guess. Well, maybe I'm probably about the average for most Link to the Past runners. Really, like I always think like people that are online and gaming are a lot younger, but it's really not the case, especially with this particular community.
Right.
I started out with the NES way back in the day. Super Mario Brothers 3 was probably my number one favorite game.
Yeah.
There is
it's like maybe the greatest game of all time, like arguably one of the best games of all time.
It really is. Yeah, there is video footage of me absolutely losing my shit getting Super Mario Bros. 3 for Christmas.
That's awesome.
It's classic video that the parents will bring out every now and then to embarrass me. Growing, that was it. Super Nintendo came along after that. And I mean, I've been a Nintendo guy kind of for the most part, but I've dabbled into PlayStation, obviously. In the later years, but Link to the Past was one of the few games that I had for the Super Nintendo. I didn't have like a lot of cash growing up, so it was all like paper route money, allowance, and stuff like that. I had to cobble together most of my own cash to put up for video games, and I'd get maybe one for Christmas, and that. So it was a big decision that you had to make.
Yeah.
What game do you want? And Link to the Past was one that I knew I wanted. I had a subscription to Nintendo Power back in the day, and all the hype was there for Link to the Past. And I thought this seems pretty cool. I actually did not play either of the games, the Zelda games on NES. Link to the Past was my first.
So you said Super Mario Brothers 3. Was there? Did you have a decent library for the regular Nintendo, or was it pretty small?
Ooh, very small. I think we had the Mario Bros. Duck Hunt that came with the console. I had Mario Golf, whatever the NES Golf was. Yeah,
right. It's not Mario Golf. It was just golf, right?
Or it was just golf.
Yeah,
something
like that.
There's
a bunch of games that had like Mario on them. Like in the pictures or whatever, but didn't actually. Was he? I don't know if he was in the games or not.
I don't think. Maybe he was in this one. Yeah. In this particular one, he might have been. I feel like I had. Gyromite was one that I had. That was kind of an out there one.
I have not heard that in a long time. Yeah.
I don't know how we picked that one up, but that might have been about it. I had a neighbor who had Contra, I think, and he was an older kid. And so he would show me the ropes on that one, because I was like a little babby still. I was like maybe 5 years old or something. So I was just going to be dying the whole time. Yeah, for
sure. Did you have the Rob accessory, the robot, to go with Gyromite? Didn't that have like the little Rob the robot thing?
I think. Oh boy.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do know what you're talking about. I don't think that we had that. Was it maybe like kind of an add-on type thing that you didn't necessarily need to play the game, but it kind of enhanced it?
It's been a minute since I played Gyromite, or even heard of Gyromite. But
kidding.
I want to say that it came with the Rob, or I could be wrong. I know that the Rob or whatever, Rob the robot or whatever, the TaskBot, what they use to represent TaskBot now, like at GDQs and stuff, was used that. So you had a Super Nintendo, you had a Nintendo Power subscription, which of course feeds all of what is going to be cool in Nintendo land, right? Like,
absolutely.
So you decide to get Link to the Past, and tell me about do you remember your first experiences with it?
I honestly do not. I wish I had some like really cool story. I remember it always being one that I could go to and play again and again, like, which is why, the randomizer all these years later, it felt completely natural to jump into it and play it, here in the 2010s and into the 2020s here. So it was because I think, it had that kind of like grandness, it was like a big adventure, and as a little kid, especially it really captivated me. you know, and because a lot of the other games that I had were like, you know, a sports game or something, you know, like NHL 94 or something, you know, Super Mario Kart. So a lot of like quick and pick up and play, you know, nothing really too fancy. But like a game like Legend of Zelda, which comes with a lot of story and, you know, power ups and, you know, things like this. And it just seems so cool. So no surprise that it stuck with me, and the Zelda franchise just in general stuck with me all these years.
Sure. What was there anything else that you were going to pick up with your extra allowance? Or
I remember
the money that you earned?
Donkey Kong Country was a really big one. So all three of those ones in the trilogy for SNES there, I picked up all of those. I had Mario Paint.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I don't know why that one was such a high priority, but I got that.
Did you play it a lot? Because I remember playing it a little bit, but I don't think I really like got it. Like I understood the point.
I feel like I did play it a fair bit, just like making stupid little, you know, comics, I guess, probably.
Sure.
Yeah. Probably. And you know, some of the other like classic SNES games, like I completely missed until a little later in life, like Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy 3/6, like those kind of like bigger RPG ones. I think they were a little over my head at the time. I was like, these ones are actually too much story for me to handle. And so it wasn't until a little later that I actually went back and picked those up. Yeah, the collection was small for the SNES. My video game library generally is pretty small. I'm not one of those like Steam sale guys that'll just like, oh, here's something that's like $5. I have a friend who constantly is feeding me like, yo, this deal, get this deal. And he never plays games himself. I'm like, why are you buying all these games, man?
Right.
So I'm very choosy, and I stick by the games that I play. Like I just finished Tears of the Kingdom after dumping 230 hours into it. I haven't played any game since that came out, and that's it. I like
that you say just finished it, even though it's like it's only been a couple of months. I mean,
it's been out for months.
Give yourself a little bit of a break. I mean, it's a pretty massive game.
Yeah, but I saw people that were, you know, like 2 weeks after it comes out, and they're like, done, moving on to the next. And I'm like, I can't live like that, you know?
I see what you're saying. You want to take your time. You do want to take your time.
Dig into it, you know, right?
Yeah, for sure. I 100% get that for sure. What about competitively? Did you have siblings or neighbors or anything that you were playing like Mario Kart with, or?
Yeah. I've got a younger sister. And, you know, we're just the right age gap. We're about 3 years apart. And so growing up, it was like, oh, he's the cool older brother. And so she would just want to play games as well. And I mean, she's probably a bigger gamer than I am now. And so she rocks. And so we would play any game that had multiplayer would be something we do together. So co-op on Donkey Kong, we could do that. Mario Kart, very competitive. As for like really competing at games or like being like really like I don't know, like being really hyper competitive in any capacity, not really. I feel like I'm generally too chill for that, but
I see.
As I got a little bit older, I guess things like Smash Bros would come onto the scene, and you know that could lead to some heated matches with friends and stuff. What
about sports? I mean, you're Canadian, so you're required to like hockey.
I am, and I do like hockey. I won't lie.
Okay, but were you playing hockey?
Did I play hockey? No. Because all that gear was too expensive. So my parents were like, hey, you got a soccer ball and a pair of cleats. That's what you get. And so I played soccer. That was my sport growing up. So I mean, there is that competitiveness in me, I guess, you know? And so that kind of rears its head in things like the randomizer. So,
did you enjoy playing soccer, or was that more of my parents are making me do it?
No, it was definitely a thing that I really took to. I played all the way up until I was maybe 16 or 17, and then I got a job. And then once I got the job, it was like, okay, I got to balance this out, and I just wasn't making it work. So the soccer had to go, unfortunately.
Okay. So you did enjoy it, and you did enjoy the competitiveness of soccer as well then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Did did it continue with Nintendo 64 after the Super Nintendo, or did it other stuff come?
Yes. N64 came along. Let's see, it was so Mario 64, Mario Kart 64 after that. My biggest regret was I played the Nagano Winter Olympics 98 video game for
Okay.
N64 at a friend's house
All
for
right.
maybe about 15 minutes. And we played maybe the one good mode in that. And so I was like, oh, this game is amazing. I wasted all of my paper route money. It was like one of those, like, I think it was like $100 Canadian, so that was a couple of months worth of paper route money. And I got it home and I was like, yes, I finally have Nagano. And it sucked ass. Oh my God. It was the worst game I've ever purchased. And I regretted it immediately.
That's gotta be such a terrible feeling, because you know, like you said, that's so much money, and you're saving it up to try to get something good.
Mm-hmm.
And
nope, wasted. It was a good cautionary tale to, you really, think before I would buy something. But oh man, what a heartbreaker. And then with N64, I got to Ocarina of Time, obviously amazing game, super great. But after that, I got sucked into PlayStation by Final Fantasy VII and all of the hot marketing that went along with that. I was like, there's no way video games can be like this. This is too good. And then that was the PlayStation era. That was when the PlayStation era started, I guess, and
it hooked you ever since.
Kind of, yeah. At least in some, I'm always, kind of keeping up with the PlayStation scene a lot more. I've gravitated back towards Nintendo from time to time because, they've always got such great releases that, you're guaranteed to hit on, like, your Mario games and your Zelda games and whatnot.
Yeah.
But Final Fantasy VII remains one of my favorite games of all time. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
So can you tell me why? Because I played Final Fantasy VII when it first came out, because of course the hype, right?
Yep.
Like it was super hyped. It was so cool looking. It was something new. I'd never played turn-based RPGs before. Like I just like you mentioned, he went with like Chrono Trigger and stuff. It was like too advanced for you, and that's kind of how it was with me. And with Final Fantasy VII, I just didn't understand it.
Yeah.
So much so that I've never really played Final Fantasy. Today was my first day playing Final Fantasy IV.
Oh, okay.
I went to the Discord and asked people, like, if I'm going to play Final Fantasy, like the older ones, where should I start? And 4 was the consensus, I think. And so today was my first. Yeah, today was my first experience with it, and it's interesting. I'm still only a couple hours into it, but it's interesting. So 7, what was it about 7 for you?
Oh, what was it about 7? I think that 7 is the turning point in video games where, like, they take on that truly, like, cinematic tone, like I don't think I fully, as a kid, probably didn't understand just how big it was, but like it's one of those games that, like, I'll go back and play it now and I'll go, like, this was that moment where games really took off, like it, with all the Nintendo stuff, like it was just like quality family fun kind of stuff. And even though Ocarina of Time has a lot of kind of similar elements to it, it does have that. It's an even bigger scale Zelda adventure. They were slowly kind of like growing in scope with each one. But Final Fantasy VII, something about it, it just hit like a movie. And I'm like, this is a video game, but it's a movie. And I think that that piece of video game history is so cool. And the thing is, like, I still go back and I played Final Fantasy VII maybe about 6 months to a year ago, I guess now. And I still can get through it and love it completely and fully,
Sure.
Yeah. What
about the remake? Have you played the remake?
Oh my goodness. The remake is also maybe my favorite video game remake that's out there, because when it comes to remakes, there's a lot of cases where I'm like, you don't need to redo this. Like the game still holds up fine. Case in point is probably Resident Evil 4. I played through the remake of that, and like I'm like, okay, like it's cool, but the original is still really great. Like I have more fun playing the original. Final Fantasy VII remake is so cool because it is completely turning the original game on its head, kind of, or at least it seems like it's going in that direction. And to kind of like remake it, but also make it something that's completely different and like this new kind of like experience, I think is where the remake really shines. Because again, like I can go back and play original Final Fantasy VII and go, oh, this game is great. Like I still love everything that this package offers. And the remake is something completely different. Sure. And I like it just as much, pretty much.
Are they keeping the story and everything the same, or are they kind of like redoing it?
They're redoing it in a way that I think is really interesting. It seems like what they're trying to do is kind of like subvert expectations amongst the fans who, you know, like they're kind of like turning the whole thing on the fans. Like, oh, you thought it was just going to be a regular remake. Guess what? We're introducing elements in the wrong order, and maybe some people are going to live, some people are going to die. I don't know. It seems like they're just stirring the whole pot. And I think that's what's really cool about it. I love it. I think it's so cool. Yeah.
That's so cool because for me, that's Link to the Past. Like my like breakthrough moment was seeing Link to the Past going like very cinematic in its opening with like, it's raining outside, your uncle leaves and you got to go into the castle and you don't even have a weapon. You know what I mean? There was just something very like cinematic to the whole opening of Link to the Past for me. I don't know if they should ever remake it though. Like it's perfect as it is. You know what I mean? Like
it is. It really is. I mean, like, you know, the art style holds up, you know, the sprites still look really, really good. And the pacing is just right. You know, I mean, even like the vanilla game is easily, you can complete that in one sitting. NMG or otherwise, you know, otherwise, in any space you want to go at, you know, you can get through that game, and it's just this nice tight little package. And but I think you're right. I think that there is that early kind of showing of that cinematic quality, and I guess for me, I guess Final Fantasy VII kind of was like that big, like, oh, this is really here now kind of thing. Yeah. But you could see that like game developers were already trying to tell bigger stories with a game like Link to the Past, for sure.
Yeah. So as you're getting older, you start playing the PlayStation, you know, Final Fantasy sort of changes everything for you. Are you buying multiple systems, or do you eventually go into like computer gaming? Where does gaming go for you as you get older?
Yeah. I mean, I think I was starting to see that like the most bang for my buck was going with PlayStation consoles. I had enough friends who were buying other consoles that I could then just, you know, hang out with them and play games that I might be missing. So I didn't own a GameCube. I didn't own a Wii until much later into its run. Once it was like kind of this bona fide hit, and it was like, oh, okay, maybe we'll check it out. Actually, my sister bought it, I think. So it wasn't even me. I think, yeah, that's right. She came home with it one day. She just went to the mall and showed up and was like, I bought a Wii. Oh, okay, cool. Guess we have that now. But yeah, so I was kind of on like a bit of a hiatus from Nintendo, but PlayStation was kind of like the backbone of gaming. I played less stuff, I guess, through like college age. And I started working after college. And so I didn't feel like I had as much time. I was just out and about doing other things. And I don't think it was until maybe the like PS4 and then like Wii U, and that kind of got me back, because I started hanging out with some people who were once again more into video games. And I was like, oh, actually I've been missing out on a lot of stuff. And so started to dive back in a little more.
Okay. So you missed out on a lot of like Zelda stuff. So is it safe to say that the Zelda like franchise isn't necessarily your favorite?
Ooh, that's interesting. I kind of think that it might be, actually, because I missed on GameCube, and I for Wii U, I didn't play Skyward Sword, but or sorry, that was for the Wii, and then for the Wii U, when they did the re-release of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, I played both of those. Wind Waker is fantastic. I have a hot take, and I think that, well, I don't even know if it's a hot take, but I think Twilight Princess kind of sucks. I know there's a lot of TP defenders, and like, respect. Like, everyone can have their favorite Zelda. It is not mine. I don't know what it was about it. It was not my thing.
You know what's funny is people complain, especially when it first came out, not so much now, but people really complained about the Wind Waker art style.
Yeah.
I hated the Twilight Princess art style. I think that game is massively ugly.
It really is. It has aged so poorly. Yeah. I mean,
I don't hate it. It's not. I don't think it's great though. I'm not a huge Twilight Princess fan either.
No, I played it once, and I won't play it again. Like, I could play almost any Zelda multiple times and be like, okay, this is fine. But Twilight Princess is one I've been like, nah, I'm really not going to go back and do that one. Also, I missed a lot of the handheld Zeldas. I had a 3DS, maybe. Yeah, I did have a 3DS.
Okay.
But I definitely missed on a lot of the handheld Zeldas. So, like, those are ones that are on my list actually to get to. Like, what are, like, Minish Cap? Is that one of them? That's on like GBA, right? Like,
that was on. Was it? Yeah, because it's available. It was on the DS, wasn't it? I don't know. It's available on the Switch now, though. On one of the Switch. So it must be GBA. I don't know.
Yeah, like that one, and then like Spirit Tracks. There's all these ones that like I'm vaguely familiar with, but like,
what about the Oracle games, the Ages and Seasons? Did you ever play those?
Nope.
No,
missed those. Yeah,
Link's Awakening.
Yeah, nope. Neither the original or the remade one.
Or the remake. Okay,
didn't do it. Nope. So there are holes in my Zelda portfolio, but
sure. But you would say that it is one of your favorite series, then?
I absolutely would. I mean, the thing that brought it back was Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom is really good, but Breath of the Wild was just unreal. That is the best video game experience I have had as an adult person with an adult brain. Because like when you're a kid, things seem like really cool. Anything can be great, right? Mm-hmm. But as an adult, you just become more cynical and done with things and stuff.
Sure.
And so things don't wow you as much. But my first like few hours of just running through that open world in Breath of the Wild, I was like, I have never had this much fun in a game before. And that's, again, like a lot of people are like, what are you talking about, Sabo, you idiot? Breath of the Wild sucks. Where's the dungeons? Where's the hook shot? And I get that, but like for me, that was just almost like a sublime experience. Like I was just like over the moon, just how taken into this world I was. So
you can't see how big my smile is right now, but it's huge because my experience is exactly the same. Did you play any other open world games before Breath of the Wild, or was that your first foray into it?
Like, not really, not like a huge, like, what's like
Skyrim or anything like that? Skyrim,
or, even like,
Dark Souls.
Nope. Yeah, I played those since, but like a lot of open world stuff didn't really catch my eye, other than like, like some like GTA thing just for fun or whatever. But like, but like an open world kind of like fantasy kind of world, Breath of the Wild was definitely the first one that I really got into and just fell hard for it completely.
Yeah, I'm 100% there with you. It was my first real open world game, and a lot of other people will be like, well, it's not as good as Skyrim or whatever, like any other name any other open world game. But to me, it was like it combined my love of Zelda with open world in a way that I just never experienced it before. So that sense of exploration and adventure was just huge. Just so huge.
Just the most fun thing. And I got so much out of like just picking a spot on the map and being like, I'm going to go look over there. Like what is over there? And I would just make that the mission for whatever little 2-hour play session that I had time for, that's why like Tears of the Kingdom kind of suffered just a little bit because I was very familiar with the world already. There wasn't that sense of like completely newness.
Sure.
Still a lot of respect. I think it's a great game and a lot of like fun mechanics added to it to make it kind of like more, more engaging and stuff. But that first hit of Breath of the Wild was insane.
So let's talk a little bit about your Tears experience then. A lot of people are saying that it's just a better Breath of the Wild, like a better version of Breath of the Wild. Do you agree with that, or do you still see Breath of the Wild as being better? And I don't know, just talk a little bit about your experience with Tears.
Yeah,
we're way past spoilers now. We're months. The game's been out since May, and so we can talk however much you want to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's tricky because there's a lot of games where there's a lot of, I guess, media in general where like the first one comes out and you're like, oh wow, that's pretty cool, and the second of a thing comes out and it really does improve on a lot of things and becomes like the favorite of in people's minds, like Terminator 2 as a movie being better than the first Terminator. You're like, oh yeah, because they just kind of took what already worked and made it, put it up the volume up to 11 on that one. And the same kind of thing I think does apply to Tears of the Kingdom. I think they took a lot of the things that work in Breath of the Wild and just gave them that nice polish and added new things to kind of make you, I don't know, just kind of engage you a little bit more. I do feel like it was almost a little bit too busy. There was almost that little bit too much going on, and I felt like it was almost like a collectathon. Because I fully completed almost everything except for some of like the really piddly side quests where like help one Goron out. I'm like, I'm not going to help this guy out, or go after the Koroks or whatever. Like, I think I collected the bare minimum of those Korok guys. I saw them and I went right past them.
That's so funny.
I need my friend. Nope, sorry, buddy. You're never going to find your friend.
Did you help Addison hang all of his signs up?
Oh my God, he was everywhere. If I saw him, I actually did try and help him out. I felt bad for him, out in the cold sometimes, he's just like, oh man, you need to get some hot chocolate or something. But with Breath of the Wild, I don't even think that I had like 100%ed it. I got through as much as I wanted to. I explored the map extensively, and I was just like content with being done. And with Tears, I felt like I was being driven to like, get all the shrines, get all the light roots, do everything. And it just felt like it was pushing me to just 100% the game a little more, which, I mean, good on them when it came to the game design. It worked. It got me to play the game forever. But what was I doing at the end? I was really just trying to check things off of a list, and it was like, okay, well, this isn't quite as magical as I maybe thought Breath of the Wild was. So but I think there's so much good in Tears that like there's no denying that it's absolutely fantastic. But,
sure. What about story wise? Because you talked about story when you mentioned Final Fantasy and how important that was to you. Breath of the Wild kind of had a lack of story since it's linked like rediscovering everything that's sort of happened in the past. Tears is a little bit similar. I don't know. What did you think as far as story goes for both of them?
It's still pretty minimalist. There wasn't like a whole heck of a lot. I mean, I liked the time traveling Zelda situation. That was interesting. I would have maybe wanted more of that, I guess, to find out more about that part of the story, because that was actually an interesting little element that they introduced. I thought that they were going to do more with Ganondorf. Like, they were hyping up and the boy is back, and it's like, all right, okay. And then he just kind of was chilling down there under Hyrule Castle the whole time. And like, he just show up at the end. He's like, okay, I'm going to take stuff over. And you're like, oh, well, I'm already OP. I'm going to kill you in 2 shots here, man. Like, it's over for you. I was really hoping like he would like antagonize, Link or people more, maybe, like really try and do something. For my money, best Ganondorf is absolutely Wind Waker. he's so tragic. Like he's my absolute favorite Ganondorf. And I don't know. So Tears, it gives you your typical Zelda story. Cause I mean, the thing, it's generally the same kind of elements throughout any Zelda game. So I think it told like a competent story. And it definitely kept things moving along and wasn't, too, overwrought.
Sure. And I think it held your hand a little bit too much. Like I figured out how's the Zelda dragon thing pretty quickly. I think I figured it out. I think my favorite part was pulling the Master Sword. I thought that was like a cool story element.
Yes.
I like the ending as well of what happens at the end. Although I do wish she stayed a dragon. I wish she stayed a dragon. I wish there was like actual consequences, because it's like she's got to swallow the stone and this is irreversible. And then they just magically reverse it. It's like, I don't know. Yeah. I just wish there was some sort of consequence.
Yeah. But. Yeah. I mean, especially because like who cares about the grand Zelda timeline? That's all BS. This game can be its own thing. And if this Zelda gets to be a dragon for all eternity, totally fine.
Totally.
And I think you're right. The actions have consequences. And the thing is, they set it up so much so, if you do this, there's no turning back. And she's like, I've got to do it. And then, she just ends up, being a human and everything's, peachy keen. Cool. Yeah.
It would have been nice just to have some sort of consequence. I think that would have been, that would have helped the story a bit.
Added more weight to it, right? That she has to live on in that form. And not that it's a bad, end or anything. It's just, that's just how it is,
Right. No, it's like tragic. And you can also, it's tragic because she's stuck like that, but she does what she does to save Hyrule. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. There's something cooler about that, I think, than just like, everyone's back to normal now. Minor complaints. The game is fun.
Yeah, it is.
All right. So you play less video games as you get older. I think you mentioned because being busy, and then just maybe your friends aren't playing as much video games. Is that fair to say?
Fair to say.
So do you then find video games and Twitch specifically through YouTube or through friends, or how does that happen?
Interesting. Video games came back just by the people that I was hanging out with. It was I went to NYU for my master's, which is kind of like out of left field. I was looking to shake things up. Being here on the West Coast for a while, I was like, what can I do with my life? And I somehow lucked into getting into a master's program at NYU. So moving to New York, I lived there for 5 years. I was able to do my degree and then stick around and work on a work visa for a couple of years. And the friends that I made there were like much bigger gamers. And so, that's when I picked up the Wii U. We moved on to Switch as well, at the tail end there of my time in New York. So
that wasn't that long ago then, right? That was like almost like when did you leave New York? Around 2017?
I left New York in 2017. You're right. Okay. Yeah. You figured out the math there. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, that was when that was. It was maybe
point, have you heard Twitch and stuff?
It was one of these friends. He knew about Twitch, and we went to SGDQ in 2016 or something.
Wow!
And he was like, "Oh, this will be cool. Let's go do it." And I was like, "Sure, whatever." Like at this point, I still had really no idea. He was big into watching speedrunners and stuff, and so I was like, "What the hell is even that?" And so he kind of pulled me into that world. And so we go to SGDQ, and that was really, I think, the introduction to the whole scene. Yeah. And I mean, I wasn't even Sabo back then, but I was like, oh, okay, like this is all right. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's jumping feet first into the deep end, right? Like,
yeah, it was weird. I was a little overwhelmed.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. I don't know. Tell me about your experience at that first GDQ and what it was like.
It was cool. It's very different from my GDQ experience in 2019, where I was in the community and I knew people and
Yeah.
and the way that you approach a GDQ when you like know people there and you have stuff you want to do and you want to hang out with folks, like completely different vibes. It's like way more of a party when you're just going and you don't really know anybody. Like we went because, you know, I think there were some runners that my friend knew who he was like, oh, we got to go see this, I don't know, Super Mario run, you know. Oh yeah, for sure, we'll hang out and watch that. But we just would walk into the main kind of hall thing, sit down and talk to each other about what we were watching. And so it was a completely different vibe. But GDQs are a fun thing to do if you're part of any, you know, community online on Twitch and stuff like this. Like I think you owe it to yourself to go to at least one and kind of experience it, feel what that's like, you know, and because you really get a different sense of community once you kind of have some faces to names and stuff. And
sure,
it's pretty cool.
So did this introduce you to the idea of Twitch and like streaming games, and what pushes you to then start picking up something? Is it linked to the past?
It really was linked to the past. So I still didn't. I think I picked the username just so I could have a Twitch account, but I didn't really do any streaming or anything for a while. And then the randomizer first spring tournament there in 2017 shows up on the scene, and I was like, wait a minute, this is really cool. So that was when I first started actually, you know, trying to run the randomizer, and nothing online, just kind of, you know, at home, hanging out with friends and trying it out, trying to figure out how this thing works. And then it wasn't until I left New York and then was like, okay, how do I still hang out with my New York friends, but I'm back on the West Coast? And it was like, okay, well, I'll get a Twitch account up and running and I'll do link to the Past Randomizer and you guys can watch. And that was really the start of me being online in that capacity.
Okay. So when you pick it up, it's literally just like hang with friends and play a game that you love in a new way every time, right? Like, no intentions of like trying to race, trying to be a part of the community. It's just, this is a way to connect to my old friends.
Yes. Yeah. So not at first, it was definitely just the friend thing. And although it didn't take too long to start to kind of like dip into, you know, the discords and stuff and see what's what. And it was as we were getting kind of ramping up for the fall tournament, I was hearing this fall tournament was coming. And so I thought, okay, I better kind of get involved a little bit more. So I started running races on SRL back in the day. That was kind of like the first experience of interacting with a community in any kind of way. You know, I was very new. I didn't know how anything worked. And so it was a little intimidating at first.
Sure.
And I was streaming on a really garbagey laptop as well. And so it was like a jet engine every time I tried to, load OBS. And so I got to upgrade the equipment here a little bit.
So how long are you playing before you start jumping into races?
Let's see. I had probably been playing for maybe 3 to 4 months, I guess. I think the first time I ran a seed was probably like April or May of 2017. And that was just at home, just to try and test it out. And it was like, okay, we set benchmarks, like, okay, how fast can we get through this thing? And then once time started getting down to like, 2.5 hours or something, I was like, okay, maybe I'm ready to actually, race with these people. Because I was starting to, at that time, to look and see, what kind of times people were running when they were racing. And I was like, okay, maybe 2:30 is about competitive enough where I can maybe, finish second from last, and that's fine. But,
right.
like, let's just get in there and see what this experience is like. So, maybe in the late summer of 2017, I want to say, is when I start showing up on some of those SRL races.
All right. So before we go too deep into ALTTPR, because it's gonna go deep. Do you miss New York? Do you miss your time spent in New York?
Boy, it is such a love-hate with New York. Like there is so much going on at any time that you can be busy any day of the week. Any, musician that you like is going to come to town. Big name, I don't know, so-and-sos are gonna maybe, give a talk somewhere or something, right? Like I saw Shigeru Miyamoto at the at the Apple store where they were launching Mario Run or whatever it was, that first effort in mobile there. He was there for the release, and it was like we took off work early. We're like, shit, we're going down to the Apple store. See you later. And so that was, so that kind of stuff happens in New York, and that's really cool. The things that suck about New York is that it is nonstop. So if you ever want a break, you can't get it. You can try and get out of the city, but I mean, like, I don't know, I wasn't rich. I don't have a car. I can't just like zoom out of town, whereas back here on the West Coast, man, things are just so chill, and you can just go for a walk on the beach. You can go hiking in the mountains, it's all easily accessible, and everyone's just more laid back here. And so it's like that, push and pull, like, because I work I work in the anime industry now, and they want me to potentially move back to New York. That's where the headquarters is, and I'm like, like there's good reasons and bad reasons to do that. So I'm torn on that.
When you left, was it because your work visa was up, or did you want to go back home?
I had no choice, and the company that I was working for, they were like, you know what, we just can't keep sponsoring you. And I was like, what? I've been working hard for 3 years from you guys, Jesus. So it was kind of this like abrupt end to things. It was we
it was outside of your control. That's
basically, because there had been like, one manager who was kind of like negotiating on my behalf, all the way up until like the final deadline hits. And it was like, you know what, we just can't do it. And then it was like, well, pack your bags in a month, you're out of here. So it was rough.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
But like you said, West Coast it's not like you went to hell, right? Like you went to somewhere that's like you get I'm guessing you bought a car to get around in the Northwest.
Get around a little easier.
We don't have the same sort of transit system that they do in New York City. But you
just
get to go to the
now,
beach,
right?
or you get to go outside. What's that?
It's just vibing, right? Like
it's totally vibing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you might be heading back to New York then?
It's a possibility. I've gotten used to being back over on this coast. Like, I don't know, man. I kind of like it over here.
I know it's tough. There's part of me that wants to be on the East Coast just because I don't know. I want to watch football at like 1 o'clock and supposed to 10 o'clock. Like everything just starts a little bit later. Everything over here starts super early, and
that's true. Yeah.
I don't know. There's definitely, it feels like whatever you have, you kind of want the other thing a little bit. So
that's always the thing. Yeah, for sure.
Grass is always greener. Okay. So you're playing Link to the Past Randomizer. You start doing races. Do you find yourself a part of communities pretty quickly because of how friendly you are? I mean,
I don't know if people really, I guess like even in like, text interactions, I guess I am pretty friendly. So I don't know how quickly the reputation rose, but it was fairly easy to at least kind of chat with people and be nice and friendly with people, and I still felt like a complete outsider for the longest time. I would watch like the cool guys stream stuff and chat about the game, and I would just be like, wow, like these guys all seem to really know each other well. And I still, because even just being online and having online friends was like a weird thing for me for like the longest time. It was probably one of the things that like held me back in those early days for sure, because that wasn't something that was very familiar to me. Just being that little bit older, where like even my sister being only a couple years younger, she had a ton of online friends and was like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna go to this place one day and meet that friend of mine, And I was like, how do you have online friends? That's crazy. Like they're all the way over in Europe. Like, how do you know this person? Right.
Yeah.
So that was a really kind of a strange thing that everyone's just kind of, you know, here from around the world chilling in the same places. And so I don't think it was, I mean, I sort of, you know, I tried to make it into the main fall tournament, and I missed out because I was very scrubby and very, very new. And that was when the secondary tournament, I think, got its legs for the first time before it became a Challenge Cup.
Okay.
And so that ran for, you know, in parallel to the main tournament. And it was for all of us scrubs who were just trying to figure out the game. And that was probably the first kind of like time where I had more interactions with people at you know, kind of in this concentrated kind of period. And so you start to kind of see familiar faces and chat with people a little bit more then. I think I started volunteering as a tracker, I think, at that point. That was my first step into volunteering as well, was probably sometime around there. Was volunteering to do tracking, and I would, you know, sit in on in the booth there, listening to like Cross Product doing commentary, and I was like, wow, this guy's so rad. You know, I wish I could do that one day. You know, it just seemed like everything seemed so new and cool, and I just felt like this like complete outsider who didn't know what was up, and so it definitely took me a while to become more comfortable online.
Sure. That's a question I like to ask a lot of the guests, is because I didn't grow up kind of very similar to you. Like, online friends just wasn't really a thing until Linked to the Past Randomizer, because all my friends were just in real life. And I didn't really like, Discord was like all brand new to me. And it was, I don't know, it was just a new experience. So I'm always curious to hear how people first experience that. So you're starting to plug yourself in more to the community. You're racing. I take it things are starting to progress as far as your skill and talent and time's going down.
Yeah. Coming back from New York, I was a little bit unsure of what I was going to be doing with my life, I guess, because everything kind of got like uprooted. And so I was able to dump a lot of time into the randomizer then. And, so it was really nice to kind of like find this community of people. And, when I was just kind of like, well, kind of a little bit lost, right? So, I started kind of like plugging into more things. I started seeing some familiar faces, some people that were kind of joining, around the same time as me, or were maybe even newer than me. But I was like seeing these new faces kind of pop up, and I was like, all right, we're all that next wave of runners, because your Benz and your Christoph Owens, like they've were already well established, and that was the cool crowd, and so we were these new upstarts. And I remember like
these new upstarts. Yeah, who are
I remember like In the Name of DT was one of those guys that was really nice early on, and I mean I ended up working with DT in the main tournament as well. So that definitely kind of grew. There was Felix the cat was around back then. Felix was like such a boss. I really miss Felix. He was super cool. We only adminned like maybe one tournament together, one main, and then he had to bow out, and that was very sad. He was another Canadian guy. He was from Toronto, I think. Nice. There was like Philion was around then,
yeah.
and
I miss
so like
Philion. I know he's still around a little bit, but I miss that dude.
So yeah, you start seeing some familiar names, and you're around the same kind of like time, skill levels and stuff, and you're like, okay, like let's talk. And the thing that I really liked about the early racing scene was that everyone would kind of like pile into the main ALTTBR Discord and in the post race, and would chat about stuff like like it was there was a lot of talk. Whereas I mean just as what happens with a community that kind of grows is that everyone splits off into their own Discords now and has their little group who they'll chat about, oh, I just did this run, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And so, it was a really nice way to like meet a lot of people at the same time. And really kind of get to know them a little better, that's where like people like Shireen, I started talking to Shireen a fair bit. like Zelga started showing up, and I'm like, okay, this guy's cool too. My arch nemesis, by the way, forever and always. And so then it just it grew very like organically for me. It felt like it didn't feel like it was like I didn't like force anything. It just kind of was like, okay, like I can do more. I'll volunteer for more stuff. I'll volunteer for commentary. If they want, maybe I'll be a mod, like, and so these things just kind of like really fell into place kind of nicely, and it was nice to just be, part of something, and to have, this kind of these people that were also as crazy about this game as I am. And so, yeah, it was just a really nice community to be a part of. It still is, even with all of its kind of growing pains and issues that we're dealing with. But, at its core, it's good. I believe it is good.
Sure. Whenever you get a large group of people together, there's bound to be issues. It's just going to happen.
It is.
It's how can you survive it? And Link to the Past Randomizer can survive it, as it's shown. People will come and go, and some people think that they're bigger than the game, and they think that their presence will cause the downfall. And guess what? It still goes on. Because the game is bigger than all of us.
It is.
So you start volunteering. You're doing mod stuff. Is that how you get involved in the main tournament?
Yeah. I was tracker mod first, and so that was like a nice step, because I had done more tracking than anything else, and I had only just started to kind of dabble into commentary. I remember getting an assignment to work with Willard J. Bradley, and I was like, oh my God, like he's like so good at commentary, and I'm just going to be like stuttering like a bozo the entire time. And he even gave me some feedback afterwards, which was really nice. I appreciate that very much. Helped me kind of feel more comfortable in the booth there.
Sure.
Tracker mod was kind of like, okay, this is an area where I can really help out, and as I'm still trying to figure out everything else about this community, this seems like a nice step to be kind of involved. And that was for, I guess, maybe the Key Sanity, or it was the big Swiss of 2018. I'm not sure which one it was.
It was one of those.
512. Okay. Yeah. So somewhere around there, that tracker mod became the thing. Okay. I would probably say maybe by this point, the Canadian personality was maybe catching on, and people were realizing that I was a nice guy. So that might be where it started to really kind of take root. And the thing is, like, I feel like I'm a pretty nice guy in real life. I can be a lot more like jerk ass and sarcastic, but I think like when you're online, I really make a strong effort to be nice, because we're all coming from different places, and I think everyone has to be, understanding of one another, and just try and get along. We're all, especially, because we're all trying to play this game that we like together. We should be nice about it, So, so I try and really, with my online interactions with people, I really do try and put my best foot forward, even when I'm having a crappy day. Like you gotta try and put a nice spin on it, Sure. And
here's the thing is, I think that there's people that try to be nice, and it comes off as they're trying to be nice. Does that make sense? Like, sure. They're not really nice, but they're trying to be nice. And then there's people that are just genuinely nice, good people. And that's where the camp that you fall into, where you say that you're trying to be nice. I don't know. Maybe you're just a good person. I think that's really what it is you're genuinely like good. Like, I hang out with some clowns, and sometimes they need to be reprimanded. Yeah, we hang out with some clowns collectively, and sometimes they need to be reprimanded. Is not the right word, but just be a little bit more stern with. And I've seen Stern Sabo, and Stern Sabo is still a very nice person. Like, it's not like you all of a sudden become a dick and like rude about it. You're still just like a genuinely good person. So I think there's more to it.
I've got the we're not mad, we're just disappointed.
Yes, very good. Very good. You're not a parent, right? Like, it feels very parent.
I'm not, no.
Okay. But it does. I mean, that's what I've had to say to my kids many, many times. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Okay, so you're way more involved in the community now. You're racing. I take it you're probably racing a bit more back then.
Yeah, for sure. Like still, like I would say, that was when like nightly races were like, I mean, the daily races stuff, they still exist. I felt like they were like the whole the gathering place for everybody back then, right? So like nightly race was, I think, usually 9 Eastern or maybe 10 some nights, but there was always, at least one big one. And then if some people missed one, it was like, hey, you would just throw it up in the main Discord, like, hey, is anyone looking to run blank? It was only a couple of modes back then, but and you would find enough people and you'd throw something together. And so I would say, maybe, I don't know, probably 6 nights out of a week, I was probably playing some form of rando. So, that was when I was really grinding it out and
sure.
Building up that kind of skill level.
It was also different because we're racing in groups, right? Like one-on-one racing was just for tournaments.
Yes. Yeah.
So
I think there's only a handful of maybe like really off hours races I might have done where someone was looking for a race and it was like, 11 o'clock on the West Coast here. And I was like, well, I'm still up. I'll stay up until, all hours of the night. Why not? So like one person would be like, hey, let's race. And so I think there's only maybe a couple on the docket there that were 1v1.
Right.
But yeah, it really was like just group races all the time.
Mm-hmm. So you're racing a lot. You join tournaments. How do you do in the tournaments?
Not bad. Like one of the things, one other moment that I do remember early on was, I am pretty sure that in the Key Sanity tournament, which was, I guess, winter of 2018, that first part of the year there, I think I went like 4-2 or something. Like it was above 500 record, and I beat Blaine once. It was like he was just starting to get really good back then. And so that was like my first upset, I feel like, in a tournament setting, or I think it was a tournament race. Yeah, it was. That's
gonna boost the confidence a bit. Yeah.
Those are the kind of moments early on that you're like, oh, okay, like I can actually hang with the big boys, like, and so I would say, like not really getting, advancing too far in tournaments, but at least, proving my worth, and proving that I'm putting in the time and I'm getting some results. And so, maybe a 500 record in one tourney, or just a little bit above, and then you're like, okay, I'm grinding it out here, and I'm seeing improvement. So, yeah.
So when was the famous knocking Andy out of the main tournament? Was that 2019?
Like it's been a while, and I can't remember if it was spring 2019 or it must have been some. Right? Something in 2019, spring or fall. I'm not sure if we're still doing 2 tournaments a year or not at that point, but it was definitely the 2019 year. I'm thinking about it now.
Okay.
And that was, I think that was still peak rando for me. I was underemployed, I think, at that time. And so still with a lot of time to grind out. And by this point, I'd made, a fair number of friends in the community, so we could always be racing at any given time. So lots of chance to practice. And that run was really special.
So that was the main tournament, and you made the brackets, right?
Yeah, making the brackets, I think, for the first time. So, even that was like a big accomplishment. I think in 2018, you know what? You got to go back and look at the record, I guess, to see if I actually made it. But
sure.
if I did make brackets at one point, it would have been a one and done. I guarantee you that. So 2019, I want to say it was, I know that I went up against Walter, and that even felt like an accomplishment, getting past him at that point. I feel like let's see, so round of 6. So it would have been Walter. And then that set me up with Andy after that.
Okay.
In the round of 32. And
everyone's writing you off, right? It's Andy.
Absolutely. It's Andy. And I was writing me off. I was like, come on, man, this guy's the hover god. Like, there's no chance.
Sure.
And I was just running my race, and I honestly, I think it's too much of just a blackout blur at this point because it was so hype. Like, I can't remember what happened. I do remember that in the second match, I actually had a Ganon fall or a Ganon death. And I thought that was friggin' it. And I had somehow built up enough of a lead that still didn't even factor into it. But it was so stressful. I was shaking more than I ever have. And winning against Andy and then, getting like just a tidal wave of like messages from people. My New York buddies stayed up late to watch, like everybody was texting me and stuff. And I'm like, I was like, how does this even happen? How does this even happen? But I mean, the thing about Rando is that it makes it so appealing is that these kind of things can and do happen, like, and it's that kind of, somewhat uncertainty, but the idea that like, the underdog can kind of win sometimes, that I think keeps a lot of people going, like anyone who's just trying to come up through the ranks, like you start to see some progress and you think, I'm never going to be as good as top person. But on any given day, you just hit that God route just right. Like you can win. And that is so enticing. And so the set against Andy was one for the ages. I mean, I'll never forget that. It was so wild. And then I almost get past Ack in round of 16. I was close. I was close to quarterfinals, but he just got the best of me. And, he's a great runner. So, but I mean, I was already well past my expectation at that point. So
it was much fun. It was so much fun watching you beat Andy. Not that everyone's rooting against Andy, but it was, you were a pretty big underdog. And whenever David beats Goliath, it's always fun, especially when David is such a good guy. Everyone's rooting for Sabo. Again, nothing against Andy, but it was, he was the top dog and everyone expected him to win. So it was a lot of fun. Do you still have the shirts available?
I don't. I feel like maybe I should bring them back. Maybe I'll redesign them. I'll do a redesign once I get back to streaming a bit more. I hope to get back into streaming a little bit more. I have been on a little bit of a hiatus, I feel like, but if I do get back in, maybe I'll do some that other guy shirts again.
So explain this a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously being the underdog and most of the people, not most of the people, but, a good chunk of people in chat on any given Andy race are going to be Andy fans because he's a big guy. He's got a lot of, followers, for his, ALTTPR content and otherwise, because he's a great streamer. And so, whenever, his chat rolls in, they figure it's a cakewalk in most cases. And, so if Andy's going to, go down to someone, why would it be someone who is sab0tender? Who is this guy? And that was the line that someone took out of the chat that particular in one of those particular races was something about like that other guy or who is this guy or something along those lines. And I think a lot of people send me that little that clip of the other guy. So that's how I kind of became to be known as the other guy for a while there, which was pretty funny. It was funny to ride that for a little while because I did not hear the end of that because it was pretty funny. Yeah. I'm not going to lie.
It was really funny. Yeah, it was a good time. Yeah. How did you end up hooking up with P-Train and GFE for the league? One of the only teams, I think now the only team to be in all 5 seasons, maybe you and Two Pearl, Two Furious. I think that might be the other one.
Yeah. Let's see. I feel like Train and GFE showed up just a little bit after me, but we were also kind of coming up through the ranks together. I feel like, we could see improvement. We just found each other in a lot of races together, a lot of the group races, and just a lot of respect between each other. And when it came to league kind of rolling out there, I wasn't actually sure, if I was going to end up on a team or not. I kind of threw my name out there, just kind of like, I'm looking for a team really. And P Train and GFE had already kind of made that connection because they're good old boys, and so they were already teamed up, and they were looking for a third. And they wrote me in like right quick. Like it was right after I put that little. I think I posted in the little like, hey, looking for a team thread in the league Discord there, and it was almost like instantaneous. They hopped on that right away and were like, yo, let's go. And I was like, hell yeah, boys, absolutely, because they're such good guys as well, and getting to know them in league. It has been so much fun, because we knew each other well enough to want to race with each other. But over the course of the 5 seasons in league, we've really gotten to know each other. I actually, P-Train was visiting people in Vancouver where I'm from. And he was like, hey man, like, how about we meet up? And so I've actually met P-Train in person. He's a great guy. So GFE's next on the list. I got to find a way to get down where he is. But
I mean, talk about nice guys finishing last, right? Like the Spherefinity missing playoffs, of course, full of just a team of nice dudes, like some of the nicest in the community for sure.
Yeah,
you guys can't make the playoffs to save your life, and in season 5 got relegated. Like, what the hell?
I can't believe it. I know.
What the hell?
We never live up to expectations. We're not even like, we're not going to be like world beaters necessarily. We should be a good team.
You guys who should have made the playoffs in one of the 5 seasons previous. It's ridiculous that you guys haven't, just because of how good the 3 of you are. Like, sure, competition is tough, but that's just some really bad luck. And then to get relegated.
Oh, I know. Just like the cherry on top there. Oh boy, we got to dig ourselves out of this hole. But it's surprising. It really is, especially back when the league started. Like I was still running a fair bit, so there, like I feel like I'm the weak link now. I try and get some practice in before every season and really set the game up so I don't let the boys down. But, back then, like I was still grinding it out pretty hard. And even then we still got bounced. Yeah. I mean, the fastest, I'm bad at cross keys. And the fastest cross key seed I have ever run, it was a sub 2. It was a 153, I believe, once again against Ack. And somehow he went lower than that. And I was like, I've never run cross keys so well, and I still lost by like a minute and a half. Like, I can't believe this. Yeah. Those kind of moments just hitting us in the league. But the league is such a nice. I remember
that too, season 1, because cross keys wasn't as common in season 1 as it is now. So sub 2 felt insane. Like, who sub 2s? And you got a 154.25 and Ack with a 150.11. That's right, crazy.
Yeah.
Like, looking at it now, it doesn't seem that crazy, but at the time, it was bananas. It was bananas for sure.
It was the most jet seed we'd ever seen. For the 2 of us at least. I think we were talking about how fast it was, and But League is what I like about League. The team aspect of League is so much fun because you really do come together with your teammates, and the way that the league is structured with, co-op weeks and whatnot, it gives a nice kind of different flavor to your typical, Link to the Past Randomizer tournament, So it's been a lot of fun. And it's funny because I think every year P-Train and GFE think that I am just going to quit. I'm just going to be done with it. And so they're always very nervous about approaching me, I think. And then every year GFE's usually the first one just to pipe up, and he's like, hey guys, what do you think? And I'm always like, yeah. And they're like, thank God, Thank God Sabo's back. I mean, they could probably pick up some ringer of a third and start improving. But, I appreciate that they actually want to have me back on their team as I tumble further down the Link to the Past Randomizer rankings, I'm sure. But
because it doesn't matter, because that's what the league is about, right? It's about playing with your friends. And I think that's the most important thing is if you're enjoying yourself, if you're having fun and you're playing with your friends, then you're doing the league right. That's the way to approach it. And that's the way I think why you keep coming back, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Is Sphere Affinity / Missing Playoffs coming back for season 6?
Yep. We are.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
We're down at the bottom, and maybe one day we'll be here. So
yeah, I love that you guys are not that you got relegated. I love that you got relegated and are still playing together. I feel like a lot of teams that get relegated just disband. And
it could have been, it could have certainly, yeah.
But the fact that you guys are coming back, I'm really excited. Maybe this time is the year. This is the year you make the playoffs.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. Can we? Is there a step further down? Can we get relegated out of Open League?
I don't think so. I think you'll be in Open League until you earn your spot
the end
back.
Of time.
Yeah. No, you guys will win. I'm counting on it.
We'll do our
so when did you end up becoming an admin for the main tournament?
2019, I think.
Okay. So relatively quick then.
It was pretty quick. I was a little bit surprised at first that they wanted to pull me up as quickly as they did. Because again, I was just a tracker mod, but I feel like, I was putting in the work, and I was kind of like the main tracker voice, I guess. I was putting out the daily announcements, like, here's your tracker schedule for the week or the day. And I guess they kind of noticed that and thought, okay, well, this guy can probably make the jump. So yeah, it was the 2019 is when I really got into the admin of the main. I've tried to not be as involved in other aspects of the community because I want to make sure that I can put all of my focus into the main tournament. It's a lot of work to run something, that big, as you know. So I try and make sure that I make that my focus, and that's why I've kind of stuck with that and not really branched out into too many other areas of the community as like a mod somewhere else or anything like that. Like, I'm really just a main guy at this point. Yeah.
Did you ever think about applying to the council when that was a thing, or being a part of anything like that?
Not really. That seemed like, it just seemed like a little bit too much into the politics of things. And I again, I just wanted to keep vibing. And, the moments of stress that come with running the main tournament are, manageable enough that, I don't get discouraged or, feel like I'm completely burned out or anything like that. By the end of the tournament, you're definitely looking forward to a break, but, getting kind of having to make more decisions that have greater implications on the community as a whole, I felt like that would be too much pressure on me. And, especially as I've gotten on a little bit and haven't been racing as much, I feel like I am a little bit out of touch with, some of the things that would have to be ruled on. And as such, I think it's best that I just stay away from that and just kind of like, adapt the main to meet whatever the council is deciding.
Okay, so I think I talked to Rick a little bit about the main tournament, but he's the only other admin that I think that I've had on. Tell me about adminning the main tournament, because it's the big daddy. It's the main tournament. With it comes a lot of eyes and a lot of criticism, whether it's warranted or not. So tell me about handling that and kind of trying to maintain a healthy relationship within the community and within the game, having to deal with all of that.
Yeah. So, I feel like the thing with the main is there was a time when it really was the only game in town. And, that, and then when League showed up, it was kind of like a nice, counterbalance to what we were doing. And so those were kind of like your two headlining events. As the community has grown, like there's just so many, wonderful tournaments that people are putting on, and it's pulled people kind of in all different directions. And there's like your own little area of rando that you can occupy exists now. But people still do come back to the main, which is, we really appreciate that people do come back and want to participate year in and year out. But being that we are, one of the bigger things on the calendar, criticism's a big thing that we have to deal with. And it is hard to balance out what we receive in as criticism, try and take it in as, constructive, but also not getting too bogged down or feel, kind of like beat up by it because, people can be a little bit blunt in their criticism of what we're doing. And while I think that in a lot of cases, people are bringing up valid points, you can't help but feel a little bit crappy when someone was like, I hated all the game modes you chose this year. And you're like, okay, all right, we'll try and fix that, man. Well, we really will, so it's tough. I feel like I'm a decent person to kind of helm something like this because I tend to not let things stick with me too long. I let things roll off my back pretty quickly, so, did we maybe goof on a game mode and we should maybe, adjust for next tournament? Yeah. We will. Okay. Don't worry. The changes are already in place for next year, and I just don't let it get to me as much, so but if you do kind of get hit with that and that kind of lingers, man, I can see it being pretty tough to be an admin.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't do it. It's just too much. And, I don't know how you compare League to the main tournament. It's definitely smaller, but, it's still pretty big. And it's hard. It's hard to, when you struggle with self-worth, I feel like it's hard to take criticism because then you put it on yourself anyway, on yourself more, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you don't know how to balance it. And that was hard for me. So props to you for being able to shoulder that stuff because it's not personal, but it's hard not to take it personal, I would say.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, in the moment, because we just read through our feedback form for this year, and you're going through some of those responses. You're like taking like little knives to the gut. And it sucks. Because you really try to do something that is going to get the most people excited, the most people involved. And what I want is I want the tournament to be like a really positive space. And when I see that we don't quite hit that with everybody, like that does feel bad. That feels like a failure on my part. Like, what could I have done better to, make sure that these people don't feel alienated or that these, they didn't hate the game modes, so much, what can I do to fix these things, and so it doesn't all completely brush off, but you just, I don't know. Yeah.
Being able to put it in its own compartments and put it, like, let it be what it is and not take it on, I think is the way to approach it. Now, I say that, but I don't know how to do that necessarily. But I in theory, I know how to do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, so we're always trying to figure out, ways to make the main tournament, stay relevant and enjoyable. And so, as long as we get, at least some positive feedback and people, and we do, which is really great. Anyone that, shouts us out at one point, that means a lot to us, because it is a lot of work. And, sometimes with a thing like a feedback form, you tend to get more negative responses than you would positive because people who had a good time maybe just already took off and they're like, yeah, it was fun, but they don't think to leave a comment behind or anything like that. So, but at the end of the day, we just want people to have fun with this game, and we're all here because of Link to the Past, and let's all just try to have a good time together.
Yeah, for sure. So you've been playing less the last couple of years. Is that personal reasons? Are you just not enjoying the game? Are you doing other stuff? Interests are changed?
Just a little bit busier with work, I guess, schedule wise, I've got pretty steady employment now. Right. And so I try and, I'm trying to figure out how to balance my time a little bit better. And one of the things that unfortunately gets pushed out a little bit more is Link to the Past. And even streaming in general, I used to stream pretty regularly, and these days it's not as common, which is too bad because I kind of like hanging out and playing some classic, SNES video game that I really like to play. Yeah, so a little bit less, and it really is just like that, work life kind of balance thing. It's just shifts and stuff, and so. What I also do besides just working is working like a kind of a boring job is I freelance write for like video game and anime publications and stuff, which is a lot of fun. And but because I like doing that so much, that's one of those things that takes priority over wanting to jump on Twitch and stream for an evening or something. I'm like, you know what? I really should write about this thing that I was thinking about. And so that's where my time in the evening goes, is towards that instead.
That's awesome. Are you writing like stories or articles or something?
Articles. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That was part of my degree at NYU was in journalism. And so I've been trying to break into video game, criticism and stuff like this forever.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's taken me a long time, but I've finally kind of gained a little bit of traction. And it's kind of weird because like at first, like I kind of kept my, I don't know, like my Sabo identity and my real life identity kind of like separate for whatever reason. And I found that having gotten into this writing a little bit more, like I'm online on social media a little bit more, and I just started to kind of like blend the two. So like you can link through all of my social media, and then you can find stuff that I've written with my real name and stuff. And I'm like, oh, I don't care. At first I was like, oh, I don't want people to know who I am. But now it's like, oh, okay, like whatever. You can find out who I am, and I'll share stuff with my like actual name on it and stuff.
Oh, okay. Was there a place that you've written for that we could read, or something, that articles that we can read? Or
absolutely, I've been on Kotaku a couple times.
Nice.
Yeah, I was on Polygon once.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Are you writing about anime stuff?
It's a mix. I've written a couple things, a bit of both, video games and anime. My anime stuff gets picked up a little bit more, I find. That's really like my main focus. If I had to, pick something that I'm more well-versed in,
about?
Actually.
Is that your passion?
I am. So that was the other part of my schooling, was that I was kind of involved in like Japan studies, and I was over there talking to like nerds who are big into anime and stuff. And conducting interviews over there. And so that's kind of like, the stuff I know the most about. And so that's what I tend to write more about anime. Because it comes a little bit easier to me, but I've written some stuff, and it's kind of cool.
Have you written anything about Link to the Past, or have you kept that separate?
I wrote when the randomizer was like really first coming out. I wrote something for Destructoid, but I even wrote that under the Sabo name.
Oh, okay.
I was like a community person over there, and so I just uploaded something that they wanted to run. But I don't think I've written anything about Link to the Past since then.
Okay.
But that was like way back in 2017. And I only really started getting stuff picked up maybe last year, which, I've been out of school for 8 years, and like I'm constantly pitching stuff to people all the darn time. And it took until just last year before anyone was like, oh, actually, yeah, come on, man, let's write something.
That's super cool. Yeah. So do you see yourself sticking around for a while? Is adminning the main tournament something that you plan on continuing to do for a while?
I think so. Yeah. Again, like I'm trying to like maintain my love of the game without getting to that burnout point, because a lot of people, they really just go so hard, and I don't know how they do it, because, like I've scaled back just, enough. I still will run the game mainly offline, not even in any kind of races or anything, but just for fun, I'll throw a seed on or something. But the main tournament being the thing that I know I want to commit some time to, I really make that the thing that I focus on, and then league with the boys, right? Yeah. And so that kind of gives me my fill, and it's a nice feeling, and it's enough. And as long as I can kind of maintain, that level, I'm still having fun, and I still want the main tournament to carry on and be a thing, I'll be around. I think, if we can, get a nice, fresh, crop of admins up, and I can maybe pass the torch at some point, I'm game for that. But I'll at least stick around for as long as it takes to get to that point. Yeah. And make sure that we're, I can steer the ship. And keep things running. So yeah, I'm going to be around for a while.
So
yeah.
you feel like you have a good relationship with where you're at. You get to enjoy the game in a way that's not overwhelming. It doesn't stress you out, even though one of your jobs can be pretty stressful. But yeah, it sounds like you have a really healthy relationship with it.
Yeah. I mean, I do lament being scrubbier now. Like it just sucks
Sure.
when your execution just fails you now, and you're like, you know what, I used to be better. But there's not much you can do unless you get back on the grind. And I just don't know if I'd have enough time to commit to that. So as long as I can keep, a baseline of competitiveness, like I'm good.
Yeah. Did you play in the last main tournament?
I tried to get all of the async qualifiers done. I botched one, and then we started kind of one of the things that we ran into was trying to check all the VODs that were coming in, and we were starting to fall behind on that process. And I was like, oh no, like I'm not going to be able to get all these qualifiers in. I've already botched one. So maybe I'll just pass this time, because that was unfortunate, because I do like to participate in the tournament every year, but logistically it just wasn't working out. And so I was like, and gameplay wise, it was also not working out. I did not have a good time. So I was like, okay, let's just regroup and focus on the tournament itself and make sure this thing is running properly. So hopefully I can run next year. Yeah.
Now that the main tournament is over and feedback forms are in, tell me, is the async thing, was that a positive? Do you think that has a chance of returning next year?
I think it's pretty safe to say that it will come back. Most of the feedback was very good for the asyncs. People like the flexibility, being able to race on their own times for the most part. The thing that we saw kind of usually as a caveat to that was, but I do kind of miss the big races. And I'm not going to lie, I love the big races. That's one of the things that I miss the most about the community as it is now is, like the way back in the day with like the weekly Saturday race or the weekly Sunday race that would get, maybe 60 or 70 people easily every time was the most fun, and so the big race has so much appeal that, we'll do what we can to try and make sure that we get more live qualifiers in the mix there as best we can to try and accommodate both groups. Because what was happening was with the qualifiers is that an admin had to be at least we set up this own rule for ourselves that we wanted one of the admins to be, always available during one of the qualifiers. And as we kept trying to add more to the schedule there to meet more time zone needs, we found that we were like, oh my God, like we have so many races to cover and there's only like 4 of us or 5 of us that are able to, so that's why asyncs really started to be a conversation. And if we can then maybe shift it to like a bit of a hybrid system where it's asyncs, for a lot of people that need it, and then live races, for people that love the big thrill of the group race. So we're hoping that we can maybe strike a better balance next time, but the async system will definitely be back, I'd say.
Awesome. I thought it was great. I apologize for my feedback form for insulting you personally, but everything else was positive. Just
man.
Kidding. All right. So I'm going to ask you the question that I ask everyone, and that's about Tilt. How do you handle Tilt? Such a good person, such a guy that, is so nice. I'm sorry I use the word nice so often in this interview because I hate using it because it feels like a bad descriptor, but it's just true, right. Sabo, you're nice. How do you handle Tilt, whether it's in the middle of the seed or at the end of a race?
Tilt can really get me. When I'm racing, I do find that like there is that competitive streak in me that doesn't go away. So if something doesn't go quite as planned, an unfortunate, death to Vitreous or something, that will really set me off. And I can feel it coming, even to this day, I can still feel that like when something goes bad, like I suffer even, incrementally, just a little bit, there still is like more bad decisions that get made or, I guess over time it's lessened to the point where like, it's not a huge factor, but like, oh boy, I can get pretty salty. in the heat of a race, post race, I just try and brush it off. Like if it was, a fanfare snipe or something, or, if I really just blew a race, like, you can't, I just can't let it really get to me. There have been a couple of races where I have not wanted to do the post race interview if it's being restreamed or whatever. I somehow show up every time because I think you gotta be a good sport and you gotta just push it down for that, 2 minutes that people want to chat with you and give your opponent their props for doing good and kicking your butt, I try and do that. I feel like that's the bare minimum. You gotta, I don't know, let it just, again, brush it off a little bit, So post race, not as much tilt to deal with, whatever happens. And, I don't let it really, noodle up in my brain there too much,
Yeah. Good stuff, man. Really appreciate you hanging out today, man. I had a blast. It was such a good time chatting with you, and I'm glad that you're able to come on, man. Yeah,
well, thanks for making time for me. I'm so happy that we got to do this, and I can't wait to hear it back.
Huge shout out to Sabo for coming on the show. Just a big fan of the dude, and really appreciate all the work that he does in the main tournament and just being a good person for the community. Gives back a lot, and can tell that he really just loves the community and loves the game, and I really appreciate Sabo a lot. So again, huge shout outs to him coming on the show. Had a blast. Next week on the show, we've got Cassidy Moen. This is a little bit of an interesting one because the Fast ROM just dropped, and if you don't know what that is, the devs changed something behind the scenes that really gets rid of all of the lag in the game, and it feels a little less like the vanilla game. There was some controversy about the way it came out, and it was kind of a mess. I talked a little bit about it on the show here. So when I recorded with Cassidy, I didn't know anything about the Fast ROM stuff. We recorded the week before all of the quote-unquote drama happened, so we don't touch on any of that stuff, but I still had a really good time talking to Cassidy. Just a little bit of unfortunate timing, as I would have liked to talk to him about the way everything was handled. I'm a fan of the Fast ROM. I like it. I think most people do as well. And Cassidy will admit that it was not handled the best way as far as releasing it to the public. But we'll talk more about it next week. So make sure you come back next week for the Cassidy Moen episode. We had a really good conversation. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We're available everywhere. 216pod.com has the links to the Discord. Football's here. I'm recording this at 7 p.m. West Coast time, and I'm still trying to recover from what I saw from the Seahawks. It was awful. But football's back, and I love it. So make sure you check out the Discord. Lots of sports talk going on over there, especially with football season kicking off. If you could leave a review for the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, really helps the show out, boosts SEO crap, which I'm terrible at. So you could help me out a lot by doing that. I think that's it. Thanks for hanging out. I know this was a long one, but I feel like it was worth it. Come back Monday for Cassidy Moen. Thanks for listening. See you then.